Pablo Anton is a Mexican rock guitarist based in DC with over 15 years of experience playing live and recording with different musical projects. He was part of the rock music community in Mexico City for 10 years before relocating to DC in 2013. He is now the lead guitar player for Black Dog Prowl. And Black Dog Prowl is a four-piece band that draws sonic comparisons to the likes of Soundgarden, Torch, Nirvana, just a powerful sound that you heard there. The band has built a reputation on powerful live shows. And aside from frequently playing shows around the DMV area, they also have toured internationally in Chile and Mexico, as well as cities throughout the East Coast. So I've shared the stage with Pablo a couple of times, and this man is a prodigy on guitar. So listeners, it is with great pleasure that I introduce Pablo Anton. Here he is.
Thank you.
And you were just going to talk about it. You were just touring in Mexico. Talk about that a little bit.
We were, yes. We toured. We did a 2-week tour in Mexico. We started. We flew there March 21st, and then we played a show at Caradura, which is sort of like the Rock and Roll Hotel equivalent of Mexico City. And we were there. We were supposed to tour with. We were there touring with two other bands, one from Costa Rica named Akasha, and another one from Mexico City as well named Driven. And this all happened the weekend after the Viva Latino Festival, which is like the Lollapalooza down there. And these two bands had just played there, and then we're going on a 2-week tour of the country, and so we joined them. And the show in Caradura in Mexico City was just amazing. We had the opportunity of having my very dear friend and one of the best musicians I've ever played with, Tonio Reese, join us on stage for a song. That was definitely like...
Wow. And for those who don't know who Tonio Reese is, how might they recognize him?
Tonio Reese is this lead singer and guitar player from a new metal band in Mexico called Kubo. And if you haven't checked it out, you definitely should.
Kubo. Powerful stuff. So you were down in Mexico for a total of, how long was the tour?
It was a total of 2 weeks. We had 4 shows, and in between, we had 2 shows one weekend and then 2 the other, and in between we rented a hangar at an old airport field where we shot our new video for our latest single, Shame, which I'm hoping will be ready soon.
So there's a new music video coming.
There's a new music video
and it was
coming
actually,
soon.
You can say it was filmed in Mexico too.
Yes, and it features me.
And it features Pablo.
Yes.
There it is. Yes, I love it. Now, we touched on it earlier, but let's talk about being an immigrant and an immigrant musician and being an immigrant in DC and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So as I was saying, I've been in this city for 4 years. I moved here for a job, for an office job 4 years ago. I'm also an economist, and so I got an offer to work here for sort of like a multilateral and working in financial inclusion issues. And so when I moved here, I was actually kind of disappointed. I used to live in New York before moving here, and I have to say my perception of DC was very narrow and colorblind. I thought that everybody here was just like, I mean, with all the respect, just like a bunch of bureaucrats that worked for either for the federal government or for like public institutions or multilaterals, and there was no culture, there was no artist community or something that made the city interesting. So at first I was kind of hesitant of moving here, but then when I finally moved here, and I discovered out of chance, really, out of a friend who told me about Flash Band, my life changed completely, and so did my perception of DC.
And well, first I got to say that yes, I don't think you're way off in that people's perceptions about DC. That I don't think you're the only one who has that perception, because there is this. It's only a government town, and all the people here are either working for the government or in some way, shape, or form, and that maybe culture isn't a thing, and that's one of the things that we talk about on this show is that actually that's so wrong, because the music community here is incredible.
I know.
All these great minds do it. And so Flash Band, you said, you heard about it through Flash Band. For those who don't know what Flash Band is, talk about that.
It's basically, and the founder of Flash Band, Neil, hates when I call it this, but it's basically like speed dating for musicians. It's like...
That's a really
That's what
great way
it is.
to put
Like.
it. Yes. So, speed dating for musicians. What's that like? Talk about it.
Well, they basically like jam you in like a rehearse space with 5 other musicians for 15 minutes, and then you have to switch to a different rehearse space, and then you just have to jam and meet as many musicians as you can, and then at the end of the event, they basically they make you select your bandmates, like your temporary bandmates, out of all of those small jam sessions that you have, and then after that, you have to come up with a 3-song set list with 2 covers and 1 original song, and then you have to go on stage and present it at a Flashband showcase. And I did it only once, but
And
it
the
was
whole process takes like it's a month, right, or something like that.
yeah, I
Just
think
a
it's
few
like
weeks?
3 weeks only, and then
Awesome. Speed
Yeah.
dating for musicians. Okay. And now, so being an immigrant, then you came from Mexico, from Mexico City.
Yes.
You came up.
I came to the U.S. to study my master's degree at Columbia University in New York, and then from Columbia, that's when I got the job offer to move to D.C. and came down here, and I didn't know what to expect, but I was really after I was introduced to the DC music community through Flashband, and I started, and I found it, and I started my own band, and I started having shows, and I started meeting more musicians in the community. I was just blown away by just the massive support that this organic movement in the city has. It's sort of like a grassroots movement where all of the different bands that are involved are open to sharing and to promoting and to supporting one another for the benefit of everybody, and that's just something that I found so amazing and so impressive compared to what the music community is like in Mexico City, which is where I come from.
And that's because Mexico City's community is different.
Yeah, well, the situation down there is pretty different because basically the media in general is basically controlled by 2 large, massive media corporations that are down there, and so the type of music that they promote and the type of events that they promote is basically more tuned to like pop music in general. So there's not a lot of promotion of like local artists that want to venture into different subgenres like rock or metal, and that's definitely an issue when you're trying to be like up and coming artist in Mexico City. And
Definitely.
there are some outlets sort of like similar to this radio station, for example. We also have like a state-owned radio station that has other shows like alternative music shows where you can find an outlet for the type of music that you do and you want to promote. But those, because there's only a few of them, those also become basically controlled by just a small group of people. And if you're not a part of that small group of people, if you're not in connection with somebody that's part of that small group of people, there's really no way for you to promote yourself and promote your art. And a lot of the venues down there also don't they don't give preference to original acts. They most of the bars down there and the bars down there basically prefer to have cover bands at their shows because it gets more people in, and it's more money for them. So
That's probably true. I mean, that's true of many cities, and DC is evolving in that way because there's more and more great original music played around town. But there's still a cover scene here. Cover bands are they're coming into town. Now you're playing guitar for Black Dog Prowl. How did that? You said there were other bands, and now you're playing for Black Dog Prowl. How did that transition happen?
Well, after I did Flashband with my Flashband buddies, Jen and Zach, we started an original band called 100th Nomad that we had for around a year and a half. And with that band, we started growing and we started having more local shows, and we started getting to be a little bit known and spread the word around. And then, unfortunately, that band broke up. About a week ago. No, sorry, about a year ago.
Oh, a week
no,
ago.
not a week ago. Not a week ago. It broke up in June.
Okay.
Last June, and then when we broke up, a couple of months later, Josh from Black Dog Prowl approached me and told me that they had a show lined up in Hoboken, New Jersey, and that they needed a guitar player to fill for them, and I said yes, I'm not doing anything, so that'd be a great idea. I'll do it. I'll learn the songs, and I was already a Black Dog Prowl fan. I met them 2 years before then at a show at DC9. I went to see a show by one of my favorite bands that's called The Answer, which is a rock band from Northern Ireland, and they were playing the DC9 on a Tuesday night, and the place, it didn't have a lot of people there. I think we were like maybe 15 or 20 people in the audience. But then, so Black Dog Prowl opened for The Answer at that show, and they really, they blew my socks off. Like after that, I really didn't even enjoy The Answer after that. I was like, after seeing them, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go have a beer. This was too much. Like, and I became a fan ever since. And I approached the guys at the end, and I became friends with them. And so things just naturally evolved from there.
Wow, that's really cool. It's always fun to hear the stories about how this music community is so vibrant, and there's a lot of movement that happens. Like you, we've been in multiple bands, and the more you get connected with the scene, the more you start to see the different musicians and how they jump, and they have different generations of bands and stuff come through. It's pretty incredible. Now, one of the things I always like to ask on these interviews is, if you could offer one piece of advice, what would it be?
To who?
The question is open-ended, and it's up to you, sir.
Say no to drugs.
Say no to drugs.
I don't know, like
have experience with that.
No, that's not what I meant. Never mind. I was just trying to tell a joke.
Okay. Say no to drugs. That's a positive public service announcement from Pablo. Excellent.
Oh, if you need advice as a musician in DC, I've actually given this advice to people. I all of the time I'm just meeting people that are here for bureaucratic jobs, and then when I tell them that I'm in a band, they're like, "Oh, dude, I used to have a band when I was back in high school or back in college. Those were the days. I haven't played in a while, though. I really miss it." And so my advice is just get out there and do it. Like if you were ever a musician, or if you are a musician, that you have the same illness that I have, which is that if I'm not playing music, I'm not complete. I don't feel I don't feel completely happy and fulfilled. And so if you have that same craving that musicians like me have, then you should definitely do something about it. And the great thing about a city like DC is that there's multiple options for you to explore. If you want something that is low commitment or high commitment and be in a band and tour, there's a wide spectrum of things that you can do. The lowest one, which would be Flash Band. You should reach out and open a profile in Flash Band. That's the way to get started.
Awesome. Now, and if folks want to find out more about you and Black Dog Prowl, where do they find you? Where do they go?
We have all of the typical like social media accounts: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. They're all at Black Dog Prowl, and we also have a website where you can go to see all of our videos and stuff, which is www.blackdogprowl.com.